Guess what? Today is my Japanniversary. Yay! I came to Japan on July 31st, 1988. If you do the math, and today is July 31st, 2023, that makes it 35 years since I first stepped foot in Japan. It was my very first time, and lo and behold, here I am 35 years later. I came to Japan when I was 29 years old, so you do the math. That's right. Now at 64 years old, here I am still in Japan. Let's take a little trip down memory lane, and I'll tell you what the whole JET program orientation was like way back then, and you can compare it, and perhaps within there, there'll be a few tips to help you get through your Japan orientation if you are coming on the JET program, or even if you are getting ready to come and live and work in Japan yourself. So first of all, my name is Kim, and I'm an elementary school teacher here in Japan. I am currently working in Yokohama, but when I came on the JET program, I was assigned to Tottori Prefecture. Now, before coming to Japan, I had a great job at a great school with wonderful, amazing colleagues and the best students you could ever ask for. So, a series of events led to me thinking about applying to Japan, and we'll save that story for another video. But I did decide to fill out the application and see if I could get on the JET program, because as a school teacher, I thought, why not try something, experience something new, and then come back and share it all with my students. Now, the whole process leading up to JET, as many of you know that have experienced this or are going through this, is a series of interviews, anticipation, waiting, and wondering where you're going to be placed, what your situation is like, and then finally, what are you going to pack into the 2 limit suitcases that you have to take with you for your future in Japan. Keep in mind, 1988, we didn't have internet, we didn't have access to a lot of things that new jets coming in now do have. When I looked up for information about Tottori Prefecture, I was limited to whatever I could find in guidebooks, one of them being The Lonely Planet, looking in encyclopedias, and just trying to find out whatever information I could. I was so excited because I did get a packet from one of the JET participants that was currently working in the prefecture, and he was sort of like our leader. That information was very limited. It was a handwritten letter with little pieces of advice, but nothing like we have now, where you can look up on the internet and see YouTube videos and vlogs or email with your predecessor. No, everything was done by snail mail, which was going through the post office, and then hoping and waiting that your predecessor would give you information that could help you. As a JET participant coming from Los Angeles, we had our sort of orientation and congratulatory / farewell to Los Angeles party at the New Otani Hotel. It was really nice. I got to meet some amazing people who continue to be lifelong friends at this orientation. And we learned our first lesson really quickly, is you never eat at the buffet or start drinking before all the speeches are done. We saw that table of food and we just went at it, eating away, and we were scolded later on, because in Japan, one of the things that you don't do is you don't just go up and help yourself to stuff to eat. You wait until everything is served, or you get your plate, but you don't start eating until you are formally welcomed, and that usually means a bunch of speeches and then, kind of an okay to get started. So remember that when you go into your orientations. We were leaving out of LAX, and for us, that's a huge airport. Many of us were used to it. And yeah, it was what I remember of it is I had my family coming and my teaching BFF and her son, who at the time was still just a little boy, and now he's all grown up with kids of his own. And yeah, and then we walked through those gates, and I'm going to get kind of emotional because I just remember turning and saying goodbye to my dad, because my dad was so happy that I was going to Japan. And yeah, but I kept saying in my head, it's only for a year. You know, I've been traveling before. I didn't live at home. I lived in an apartment. And I knew that this was something that I was doing for myself to enrich my experiences in life, better my career, and learn a little bit more about my ancestry. Being Japanese American and having grown up in the U.S., yet never having been to Japan, going for the first time was a huge deal for me. I did go to Japanese school when I was a child on Saturdays. I didn't really learn much except for a lot of Japanese songs, but I did learn the alphabet and I did learn some phrases. My brother always teased me that the phrases that I learned, such as which do you like better, apples or peaches, wasn't going to do me a whole lot of good. And, you know, I hate to say it, but my brother was right. I didn't know as much Japanese as I probably should have learned, but then neither did anybody else. And that was the beauty of the JET program, is you didn't have to be fluent in Japanese. You didn't even have to have any Japanese skills unless you were going into a position that required you to do so, like the coordinator of international relations, the CIR position. They needed Japanese skills. Other people, like myself, had never been to Japan either, and none of us really knew what to expect because the JET program was only in its second year of existence. At that time, there were just, a handful of us, and we were all excited to be going on this airplane together to Japan and start our JET career. Now, one of the cool things is that they flew everybody business class, and everybody was excited because for many people, this was their first time flying overseas for business class. I mean, can't beat that. However, Los Angeles had a lot of people coming to Japan, and your girl was not lucky. I did not get a business class seat. I was seated in the economy section, and I was next to a Japanese businessman and a smoker. I don't remember exactly if at that time smoking, right, if there were designated smoking and non-smoking seats, but I do know that smoking at that time was still permitted on flights, and that wasn't too fun. However, I did roam the plane, and I was able to speak to some of the friends that I had met at orientation. And of course, you're curious about who your roommate's going to be. So it was just a lot of excitement and anticipation in the air. I don't remember if I slept. I don't actually remember much about the flight, except that I had a businessman and a smoker next to me, and I wasn't with the group that was celebrating up in the business class section. When we arrived to Japan, the first thing I remember, and the first thing probably most people remember, is just getting hit with the humidity. Because in Los Angeles, we have great weather. And I had never experienced humidity like the way Japan's humidity is. So getting off that plane, all in our nice clothes and trying to feel as professional as possible, you get off and you're just a ball of sweat. They had all these different lines and people holding signs up, and you had to find, your correct number. I can't remember whether it was a number or whether it was your group area, but I just remember getting into lines and then walking onto buses and then getting bused to the Keio Plaza Hotel where the orientation was to be held. Some participants were staying at the Century Hotel that was next to it, but the majority of us were at the Keio Plaza Hotel, and that's where the week-long orientation was going to be. It was rather exciting because you're just so new, and you feel like a kid at camp, just kind of looking for anyone that you can maybe talk to And of course, meeting your roommates. My roommate was a young woman from Boston, and it was exciting because I had been to Boston and I just didn't expect to meet so many people from other parts of the US. Duh, of course, you're going to meet all these other people that are coming on the JET program to teach. So that was really exciting. And I don't remember how we got like all our materials, but we did get a bunch of information and bags. I remember we were being told to wear our business clothes during the entire orientation. And so I felt pretty good. I was really excited. So sorry about the change of scenery. It was so hot in my car that my phone kind of overheated. Not kind of, it really did. So I decided I couldn't film anymore. And now it is what? It is almost 10 hours later. And I usually don't record from home, but I really wanted to get this out on my Japanniversary. So we have a little bit of distractions here. But let's go ahead and continue where we left off, which I really can't remember all that well. So apologies if it kind of skips. We were talking about orientation and just the differences between orientations now and orientations back in the past. Because we didn't have as big a group as they do now, all of the new incoming participants were all at the same area in Tokyo. We didn't have like an A group and a B group like they do now. And they also had participants that were current jets or second year jets doing a lot of the like orientations and workshops for all the new jets. One of the things that I think it's probably common sense, but a good thing to keep in mind as you're going through all these orientations is you're going to be meeting tons of people. Not only people that have been on the program, but people that are just like you and entering JET for the first time. Let's just say that everybody is pretty much on, high mode and good behavior mode. And so it's pretty easy, I think, to make friends, and you'll probably get a good idea of who you click with. The other thing too is you're going to be asked to perhaps join different groups, one of them being AJET, which is kind of like it's not a union, but it's kind of like the organization that a lot of JET participants joined. I'll tell you right now, I never joined the whole time I was on JET. And it's not to say that it's a bad organization, it just wasn't for me. I'm not a big social butterfly, and I felt if I had to join and always be active in a group, then it just, to me, put a little bit of pressure on myself. So I chose not to join. However, it doesn't mean that you can't take part in the events. Some prefectures have really big AJET groups, so you may feel like it's in your best interest to join. There might be other interest groups, and you have to decide for you what's best for you, especially perhaps if you have an interest in wanting to do something while you're on the JET program, then by all means, I think it's a good idea to join. Bandit. Okay. One of the things a lot of people will tell you during orientation is to go out and do things. If you're not a social person or if you're not an extrovert, still go out and meet people and do things as a group, because this is your time to bond and to make connections. And I think I have to agree with that. I'm not a very big social person, but I knew that coming over to Japan, I really needed to network and make connections, especially with the people that I kind of decided that I would hang out with the people that came with me on the flight, the people that I met in Los Angeles, because I felt like we had a little bond or familiarity there. I also wanted to get to know the people in my prefecture, which I didn't really get to know until the latter part of the orientation. Usually when you're in your groups, you don't necessarily go to the same workshops that people in your prefecture do. So I didn't really meet anyone until towards the end, I think. The other thing I would suggest is if you do go out, it's probably best to go out with somebody that perhaps knows a little bit more about Japan or about the way things work. I was really lucky because the group that I chose to hang out with had someone that could speak Japanese fluently and was very familiar with how to use the trains, how to navigate things, unlike yours truly here, who had no idea how to use the train system. And, you know, once again, back then we didn't have things like Google Maps, we didn't have our navigation systems, we didn't even have anything except paper subway maps. I had a paper Japanese dictionary, and I had little paper guidebooks and little English translations of the subway systems, but that's about all I had. So we were lucky because one of the members of the group knew how to use the subway and kind of explained it to all of us. It kind of went over my head, but at least it got us from place to place. And it was also nice because some people knew, hello, Bandit. Some people knew exactly how to find restaurants that, you know, we were all interested in going to. And I remember one of the things we all wanted to go eat was tempura. And we were really lucky because someone in our group knew a good tempura restaurant and knew how to read the menus, showed us how to order, and yeah, that was a big comfort zone factor. Back in 1988 when I came, it was also disco time. So discos were big, and I remember we went to a place called Lexington Queen, I believe, and it was kind of a new experience. I wasn't a big clubber in Los Angeles, but I do like to dance, and it was kind of fun because when you go to clubs in Japan, you don't need to wait to be asked to dance. You can dance by yourself or with, you know, a big group, and you don't have to like just wait for someone to ask you to dance. So that was kind of exciting. And I also wasn't a big drinker, so I didn't really know a lot of beverages or what alcoholic beverages were popular. At the same time, you have orientation, so you don't want to go out and stay out too late because you do have to be awake, and it is important to be alert and on your best behavior during the actual orientation. And I think it's just exciting coming into Tokyo and wanting to stay out all night or wanting to just, you know, celebrate with your new friends. But just remember, you'll have time, lots of time for that later on. The workshops themselves, I think, are interesting to an extent. I found that it was a little difficult sometimes, and maybe some of you will find this as well. You don't really want to hear a bunch of don't do this, don't do that, or in my case, or at my school, blah, 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 but at your school, every experience is different. You're going to hear that all the time. Every situation is different. Obviously, right? So you have to kind of go to these workshops with an open mind and just keep in mind that you are going to hear some things that are repetitive or some things that may not pertain to you, but I do think it's important to go with a mindset that you are going to listen and be respectful and be supportive of whoever is giving the presentations, because maybe after the year, you might be one of the people that will be asked or will volunteer or apply to be a presenter so that you could help future jets. The other thing was the whole dress code. Now, I believe for the orientation it says business casual, and I remember thinking, what might be business casual in one country may not be business casual in another. For me, business casual meant suits and wearing nice dresses, and for me that was kind of fun. I remember going to the orientation and I was wearing kind of a bright pink dress, and the first thing that one of the members of the jets that was in my prefecture, one of the second year jets, had told me is, Kim, you may want to rethink that outfit because it's a little bit flashy And most of the Japanese teachers won't wear earrings, so you probably might not want to wear earrings. And yeah, you have to remember that Japanese schools are a lot more conservative. And I thought, oh gosh. So then it got me thinking, okay, am I totally dressed inappropriately? Are all the suits that I bought, because most of my suits were colored suits, like purple and pink and red, did everything I bring, was it wrong? And actually, I'm going to say this, no, because it's a part of who you are. And I think even though there may be people telling you, well, don't do this or don't wear this, you have to wear and be the person that you are and wear what you feel comfortable in. And you may get a few comments, or there may be people that say something like, oh, that's not appropriate or whatever. But I think a big part of the JET program is being comfortable with who you are and learning more and more about who you are. Who is your identity? You are not a native Japanese. And so the way you dress, the way you wear your makeup, your hairstyle is not going to be the same as your colleagues. If the whole point of the JET program is to internationalize or learn how to help Japan become more diversified, are you doing them a favor by trying to emulate and become a Japanese teacher the way other Japanese teachers are? Do you see what I'm saying? So I felt like I needed to stay true to who I was, especially because I was Japanese American. I did want to show that I grew up in the US. I grew up in Los Angeles. So I stayed true to myself, and I don't have any regrets about that, and I didn't even have any negative responses. When it comes time for you to go on your prefectural orientation, I feel like that's a time that everything becomes more real. Tokyo orientation is fun. It's like a gigantic party. You're in a country that you haven't been to, perhaps. You're excited, and it's not a trip. You're actually going to be living and working in Japan. So it's a little bit different than when you come like just for a visit or a vacation. And yeah, by all means, have fun, experience everything that you can, ask your questions, make your connections. But when you go into your prefecture, everything becomes a lot more real. You meet the people that you're going to be working with and living nearby, being a support system for. And yeah, I felt like as soon as we boarded the plane and went to Tottori and I met the other members of my prefecture, that's when I really felt like, wow, I'm in Japan. I'm gonna start working. And yeah, it was a lot. It was a much different feeling, and our Tottori orientation was a lot more focused on things that we really did want to know. Because JET was only in its second year, we got a lot of media attention. I specifically remember the newspaper reporters asking each of us, a little bit about ourselves, and then they asked, how long do you plan to stay in Japan? And the other people were like, oh, maybe 2 years, 3 years. Well, we'll see how it goes, but I hope to stay 3 years. And I remember I said 1 year. And they said, oh, you said that right away without even thinking. And I remember my answer saying, no, I only intend to stay 1 year because I am a teacher back home and I have to return back to the future class of 2000, and I'm only going to be here for a year. And I have to eat my words because 35 years later, here I still am. We had a lot of fun during our Tottori orientation. I remember one day we wanted to all sing karaoke, and we had no idea where to go because we didn't know that they had places where you could go rent a room and sing karaoke. We just asked some random person down the street, and they actually walked us to a bar, and they said, you could do karaoke here. And at that time, you paid a certain amount per song, and of course you order your drinks or your snacks, whatever. And we got the book, and there were very few English songs. I think in 1988, there was, gosh, Fly Me to the Moon, and a few Beatles songs, and what was the other one? Moon River. And I knew those songs, but it's like I would never sing Moon River at a karaoke place usually. When Tottori orientation was over, I remember the last day was the most emotional because the 5 of us were all there. We had spent so much time together, and then all of a sudden we were taken away to our different locations. We weren't able to connect until it became time for our first festival, which was Shanshan Matsuri in Tottori Prefecture. It happens in the middle of August, and somehow we all found each other and we were able to exchange phone numbers. So things have come a long way now, and I'm sure if you are experiencing your orientation, I'm sure it's going to be a lot easier than it was for us when we had no technological advice. I was going to say advices, no technological devices. But I'm sure you're going to still experience the same things that we did. The excitement, the anxiety, the feeling like you have to get involved and meet people, yet at the same time feeling like you need a little bit of time to yourself to adjust and perhaps get used to the weather, get used to the time difference, so many different things. So I'm going to keep this short and just wish anyone that is coming on the JET program for the first time the best experience. Enjoy every moment and soak in all that information during orientation. Enjoy trying new things, meeting new people, sharing new experiences with newfound friends, and getting ready to start your journey here. Some of you may be like me and stay for a long period of time, and some of you perhaps will just be on the JET program for the year. Some of you may find that it's not right for you, or everything that you expected didn't turn out quite how you had hoped, and there's no there's nothing wrong with saying it's not for you if you need to leave for whatever reason, but experience everything with an open mind and an open heart. I'll be your little JET grandma here and say, don't forget to stay hydrated, take good care of your health, both your physical, mental, and emotional health. And yeah, summers are pretty brutal, so make sure you have plenty of time to rest, recharge, eat well, and if you for some reason aren't feeling all that well, or you need to slow down your pace and take a rest, by all means do so. So if you are interested in learning a little bit about what it's like to be a teacher here in Japan, or if you're just interested in some of the things or some of the places that I go and experience here in Japan, please consider subscribing, and I would love to have you as a part of the community. If you have any questions, or if you would like to share any of your experiences during your orientation, please feel free to write them in the comments below. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.